Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me today on this Friday afternoon in the Locher Room. I'm Alan Locher. 7 years ago this week, domestic terrorism stole the lives of my next guest's son, Rhett Underwood, and her father, Dr. William Corporon. Mindy Corporon shares her journey of grief and courageous kindness in her inspiring new memoir, Healing a Shattered Soul. In her new book, due out May 3rd, Mindy takes readers inside her family's struggle, the support of their faith community, and her commitment to courageous kindness. A popular speaker, teacher, and writer, Mindy has dedicated her life to encouraging kindness, faith, and healing in all communities and corporations. Her commitment is currently on display in the 7-Days Make a Ripple, Change the World program that kicked off on April 13th and runs through April 25th. The 7 Days program and the Faith Always Wins Foundation were born out of hate when 3 lives were tragically taken on that day in 2014. In the aftermath of losing Rhett, Dr. Corporon, and another victim, Terry Lamano, 2 families and their communities joined hands and hearts to shine a light on the darkness of hate. It is my pleasure to welcome to the Locher Room, Mindy Corporon. Oop. I hit the wrong button, Mindy. There you are. See what happens?
Hi. That's
Hi,
okay.
thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for having me. I am so appreciative of our friendship and our relationship.
Yes, me too. This is Mindy's second time with me. We did a Conversations with Alan back in January. I'm excited that we're talking about the book and the 7 Days Challenge, and I really think everyone should read the book. You truly bared your soul, letting us in on the heartbreak, and I found it, inspiring really at the same time, and really enlightened me to, a belief in faith, which I, definitely told you. I know this week is, incredibly difficult. It's the anniversary of Rhett and your dad's murder. How are you and your family doing, and how do you honor them on that day? Besides, we'll talk about Faith Always Wins, but maybe that is. So I'll be quiet.
That's okay. It's interesting, Alan. Again, thank you. I have learned over the years, and it's been 7 years. So I've learned over the 7 years what not to do. Okay. I've learned that I should not be alone. I've learned that I should not be alone with nothing to do. Like, even if I'm just with my husband or our son, Lucas, we should not just be alone with nothing to do. We should have something planned and some activity. We've left ourselves alone before, and it doesn't go well. We get angry, we get irritable at each other, and that's not pleasant. That's not helpful to our relationship. And so currently I'm standing in my home in Florida. I'm talking to you from here, but I flew back here last night from Overland Park from Kansas City. I needed to be in the Overland Park area on April 13th. So I flew in on April 12th, and I was with my mom and my youngest brother, Tony, and his wife, Dana, for lunch on the 13th. I did do an interview for Faith Always Wins on the morning of the 13th. And then my mom and I delivered flowers and note cards and a copy of my book to the elementary school, the middle school that Rhett and my older son and Lucas attended, and then also the high school. We delivered flowers to a couple of other places that were important to our family. And then we also delivered flowers to Village Shalom, where Terry Lamano lost her life. And we delivered flowers to the Jewish Community Center. And then we went to Rhett's memorial. So it was a big opportunity to be around humans. We all wore masks. We were safe, but we were around humans and who knew the story. We were around humans who could feel the pain with us, and it helps to transfer that pain on that day in particular, and to be in a shared space with people. So that's what we did. But then I wanted to be back home.
And you mentioned memorial. Do you mean at the gravesite?
So Rhett doesn't have, and my dad don't have a gravesite. Rhett and my dad were both cremated. They were both cremated, and Rhett's ashes are in really a lot of different places, but in Overland Park in particular, his ashes are underneath a bench at the high school. And so the high school allowed us to put a memorial in, and he has a bench there, and I took a beautiful picture of it just yesterday before I left town, and it's being decorated. So friends come, and it gives them a place to go to find Rhett and to be there to, celebrate him and remember him. And so there were flowers and note cards and a box of Fruit Loops, and and so those things decorate Rhett's bench. And then the memorial that I was speaking of at the Jewish Community Campus was created in memory of my dad and Rhett and Terry, and it is literally feet away from where Dad and Rhett lost their life. And it's a beautiful piece. It's a beautiful metal structure. And then on the wall, there are 3 metal structures that are ripples. And it is a beautiful rendition of ripples making more ripples. And so it's beautiful when the sun moves, etc. So that was the memorial that I mentioned that is at the Jewish Community Campus in Overland Park, Kansas.
Well, I hope to see that one day. Are you there every year? Well,
every year's been different. So last year with COVID, we couldn't go anywhere. We were in Florida, and there were travel restrictions. And so that was a year where the 3 of us were left to our own devices, and it didn't go horribly, but we had learned that we needed to be busy. So we got out that day. And then the year before that, yes, I would have been in Kansas. And so last year we were alone in Florida. And this year I just said to my husband, I said, I need to be there. And he said, that's fine. He said, I need to be in Florida. And I said, okay. And, that's a piece of our healthy relationship is that we understand that we heal differently. And
100%.
Anyways, yeah.
Everybody's, coping is a different process. Was it cathartic to write it? I mean, I don't know if that can really.
Yes, it was. Yes, because what I try to explain to people is that when we feel pain, well, first of all, we don't want to feel pain. Nobody wants to feel pain. Nobody wants to feel,
not that kind of pain, for sure.
Right.
Not, that's something nobody should ever have to feel, and nobody ever wants to feel.
Right. That heartache. And it's an excruciating pain to lose a family member and then to lose a child. I've talked to other parents. I actually have a podcast, and I recorded just half an hour ago with a man who lost his daughter. She was brutally murdered and strangled in 2002, and he'll be my podcast episode in May. And we talked about how he's healing, and he and his wife also heal differently, and he's taught me that over the years. And so no one wants to feel the pain. But let me circle back to what you do. When you start to feel that pain, sometimes people will push it down or push it away or be angry. I have learned to let it soak in and to cry, because that is a natural human feeling, to feel the pain, and then the tears come and we should cry. And so I talk about that a lot in the book, is find a safe environment where you can cry and cry and cry it out. And that is very cathartic. So when I was writing the book, I did a lot more crying, and it was very cathartic and healing. Yes.
And was, what prompted this period of time for you to write it? I mean, because it's been 7 years. Did you need that time? Did you?
I think I did. It's very interesting to sit down and think about writing your memoir and still be living. And I was writing it about myself, and I'm like, well, how do I end it? Because I'm still living. Like, where is the ending? It has to have a good ending. I mean, I'm a reader. I love to read books. I love stories. I like to read about people, but it has to have an ending, and I'm not dying, and I'm not, I don't want to die right now. And so I'm like, where do I end this memoir that I'm writing about myself? And on Rhett's 21st birthday, I found the ending. So, I started the Wreath Sisters, which is an acronym. Wreath is respect, engage, appreciate, trust. And it's a group of Black women and a group of white women having conversations. And that was spawned by the murder of Ahmaud Arbery that happened in February of 2020. And I felt compelled to do something really visual, at least for myself. And I gathered 8 Black women and 8 white women. I was one of the white women, and now we have 9 Black women. And it was on his birthday. And when I did that, Alan, I realized that my path, which had started out in the faith lane, had started out in talking about interfaith conversations. So you're Jewish and I'm Christian, and what does a Muslim believe, and having respect for one another of our faiths. That was really my path. But then I realized I need to be talking about race. I have a platform. I was a white Christian woman who was targeted by domestic terrorism. I am not your typical target. And so I needed to talk about that out loud and let people know about that. And that whole idea of that being my new platform, or part of my platform, if you will, became a good ending for me. And that was the catalyst to sitting down and rewriting everything I'd written over the past, 6 years.
Well, the book is so powerful, and I love how you sort of weave in and out of the periods of time. The painting behind you is the cover of the book. Tell me about the painting.
It is. The painting behind me is a piece of artwork created by a woman named Babs Lowenstein, and she's Jewish. And I found it at the Jewish Community Center. I write about it in the book, but I found it at the Jewish Community Center when I was there working on Faith Always Wins and 7 Days. I was there working on, how to make a ripple and move forward. What are ripples of kindness? How can we get the community involved in our activities? And one afternoon, as I was leaving, I came upon this art gallery that had just popped up inside the J. And her art was there. And there were other pieces of her art too that were very dramatic, and I appreciated them. But when I stood in front of this one, I paused. And to me, it's the swirling blue ocean. And I have had numerous vacations, luckily, with my boys, both of my boys and my husband, in the swirling blue ocean. And it reminded me of snorkeling. It reminded me of memories in life that we had together. And I found her, Babs Lowenstein, and I asked if I could buy it. And she said she doesn't sell her paintings. She said, I don't sell anything. I was like, okay, that's interesting. And I told her, I said, well, I'm Mindy Corporon, and I would really like this painting. It means a lot to me. And her eyes got wide, and she said, you're Mindy Corporon. I mean, everybody knew my name in 2015 and 16 because the murders had happened at the J. And she said, I'll sell it to you. Just you can have it. And so so that is Babs Lowenstein's painting. And Alan, I was in conversation with my publisher just like this. And he said, tell me about that painting. I think it's going to be the cover of your book. And that's how it became the cover.
Wow. I love that the publisher really,
yes.
could just, yeah, that's amazing. That,
yes.
Somebody, wow, crazy. Let's talk definitely about the book and the story. I mean, it's 7 years ago this week. On the day of the shootings, your family, like many others, were going in so many different directions. Lucas had a lacrosse game. Rhett was scheduled to audition for an American Idol type contest. And your dad volunteered to take Rhett to the audition so you could go to the lacrosse game. And then when weather, came in the way and canceled the lacrosse game, you ran to the Jewish Community Center to watch the audition. You arrived just minutes after the shooting. And as you saw your dad's truck with the doors open, you heard something. Can you, tell us what you heard as you approached the vehicle, and I'll follow that up. I mean,
yes.
It's so powerful.
It was very powerful, and it became so powerful. It's still powerful today, but it became why I did what I did after that moment from then on. As you said, I pulled
everything you've done since that day is because of that moment.
Yes, everything I've done since that day is because of what happened in this moment. And I pulled in to the parking lot, not thinking anything was wrong. And as you said, I saw my dad's truck and the doors were open and there were no people standing there. And that was odd. And I felt a little odd. And I sped up a little bit. And then I saw my dad's body lying next to the truck. So now I've seen his body lying next to the truck, and the cortisol has rushed into my system. And I press on the gas and I stop the car, grab the keys, run out of the car. And as I'm running to him, I'm not very far from him. I didn't park very far. I want to go all the way to his body. I want to get as close to him as I can, thinking that I am going to help him. And as I got close to him, about 2 feet away, I was stopped. And I explain it in the book that it was as if 2 hands were on my shoulders and stopped me. And there was no one around me, but I was physically stopped. And I heard the words, "Your Father's in heaven, go find Wreath." And I looked back at my dad, and I remember thinking, I want to go to him, but I knew not to go to him. I knew that there was nothing, and I could tell physically that he was deceased. There was nothing I could do. And then that's when I backed around the truck and I found Wreath in the arms of 2 other men.
And why do you think God was talking to you?
Gosh, why do I think? Just that I was in such a sorrowful space immediately. And I think that I found transcendence. I think that my energy and my spirit found some kind of opening. I don't know how to explain it, but I heard, "Your Father's in heaven, go find Wreath." So why did he talk to me? Because God's supposed to comfort us, because God is supposed to offer us comfort. And typically God doesn't speak to people, I think. I don't hear from a lot of people that hear from God.
Right.
But I know that God talks to us through other humans. And I talk about that in a whole chapter. I talk about all the people that helped us and were touches of God through their hands and what they did. But God talked to me right then. And maybe God talks to us more often and we don't hear it. So maybe he was talking to me and I just also happened to hear it. It was booming.
What I think is so powerful too. I mean, these types of, situations, I mean, I just shared with you, you hadn't heard about the shooting in Indianapolis. It's chaos that ensues. And, you feel that, reading your book, everything that is, all the moving things happening, your brother's getting there, your brother arriving, people working on Wreath, there's just so much that you really do feel, you really were able to articulate on paper. I think, we can feel what you were going through. And I think that's powerful, especially when we're talking about things like gun violence. You know what I mean? Like, nobody should have to live through what your entire family and your entire community lived through because of hatred that one man had. And, you talk about in the book how the events of April 13 affected so many lives. And one of those affected was the combat medic in the Army who was working at the Jewish Community Center. He ended up helping Wreath. And in the long run, Wreath changed his life forever. Can you talk about Thomas Bates?
Yes. So I smile when I hear, the names Thomas Bates or Mickey Blount or Dan Stringfield, because they're part of me. They're part of my heart, and they're part of our story, and they're part of Wreath's legacy. So Thomas Bates was working at the J, and he had been, was an Army medic, and he was working at the J that day. And they heard shooting, they heard gunshots. So to hear their story, they heard gunshots. And he immediately thought of his training. And he realized that he was probably the most qualified person on campus at that moment to help anyone. And what he did, though, is he treated the situation as if it were like in war, as if it were like he were in Afghanistan, or Iraq, where he had been deployed. He didn't treat it with a lot of humanity. And that's what I talk about, is how Wreath's compassion transferred to him while he was there. And then since then, he's had a few things happen to him, and he realizes that just when you're treating someone who's wounded, that's not the only person that's wounded. There are other people in the circle that are wounded, and healing a shattered soul brings that to light. Yes, I was clearly wounded and still am, but there were other people that were wounded, and people have to make changes in their life going forward to be able to heal from that epicenter of hate. And it's so important to acknowledge that there are epicenters of hate, and they ripple outward, and they can be very negative. And so we as humans in a healing capacity have to change that vibration and turn that hate and evil into what can we do for kindness, and what can we do for, other human souls to help us heal going further.
I just realized we were talking about the artwork and the book cover. I neglected to put this right where it should have been. So that's the cover of the book, and I hope everyone picks it up. But I had what I wanted to ask. Give me 1 second. I lost my place. We know that you've become active in the interfaith work since the shootings, and ironically, it was the interfaith group of people in the hospital working together that brought your family comfort, even before leaving the hospital. Can you tell us about the group of individuals there?
Yes. So first, the first person that came into our lives and our story, he came with very negative news, and it was Dr. Fishman. And he is Jewish, and he was the emergency room doctor, and he was actually not just the emergency room doctor, he was the head of trauma. And he came into the small room and told us that the young man who came in by ambulance, they had lost his heartbeat. And that was just devastating news to us. And so he came in. And then shortly after that, when we left the room, a woman approached me. And to tell you how much chaos is going on in your mind, when people want to talk to someone who is in the middle of trauma, you literally have to get like right in their face. So she got right up to me to look at me, and she said, "I know you, and I'm Christine Hamley." And her role was to take care of all the PR for the hospital. And she said, immediately she said, "I'm so sorry, but we're gonna help you. We're gonna communicate this the way you want to communicate." And I'm like spinning. My brain is spinning because my dad was murdered and I saw him, and now this man has told me that Rita hadn't survived, and she's Christian. And then the trauma team, I found out later, that had helped Rita, and the trauma team that you're speaking of, they come together every year on the anniversary. Maybe it's a text now, or maybe it's a phone call, but initially in the first few years, they got together physically. And there are different faiths, they're Jewish and Christian and Catholic, and they're different faiths, and they come together and they unite one another. And then there was a rabbi in the hospital room, or in the small room, it was a hospital, in the room in the hospital, there was a rabbi who was with us when we found out the news, and he was immediately there for Lucas. And then a Christian pastor showed up, and then another rabbi showed up. And so I didn't understand that interfaith was going on at the time. I wasn't paying attention to that. But when I went back to write the book, and I was looking at my journals and interviewing people, I was piecing how all of that together, how God intertwined all of those interfaith people on that day. And then months later, I heard God say, "Bring my people together," when he had already been doing that for me. It was kind of like, hello, bring my people together. And that's when I looked at the interfaith dialogue aspect of what I could do with the platform of Faith Always Wins.
It's incredible, the support that was there, and I'm sure not when you were even able to understand it. Like, I'm sure it's afterwards that you can look back at that, but at that moment, there's no way your family understood what was happening.
And let me address something real quickly there. When people have trauma, so you told me about the Indiana shooting, and I was aghast because I've not watched the news at all today. I was in my own space and bubble, and it's horrific. People will want to reach out and throw things at these families, which is great, which is very helpful. What I tell people is, if that's what you're compelled to do, then do it. Reach out to someone who is hurting immediately. But mark down the anniversary and find those people that were hurt 6 months later, because 6 months later is when we realized they're not coming back. Reet and Dad are not coming back. It took my body and soul almost 6 months to realize. I knew logically. I'm not saying I didn't realize it. For my body to feel it, and so. If you want to help someone who's had trauma and you don't know what to do immediately, you know what? If someone in their life died, I told people, they're not coming back. You've got time. People would say, we want to do this memorial or that memorial. I'm like, you don't have to be in a hurry because they died. They're not coming back. You can stretch it out a little bit. So I don't mean to talk about it like it's crass, but I live with it every day. And so
I think that's a great piece of advice, though. It's helpful to let, people are always there. Some people are afraid to do anything, which is just, everybody handles, like you said earlier, everybody handles, grief and death in different ways, but somebody who's experienced it can shed the light for us on how to help someone who's going through that process.
Yes. So specifically put that date, like today's date. If someone feels compelled to help the people in Indiana, put today's date on your calendar, mark it for October 16th, right? Is that right? Is that 6 months?
April 6th. Oh, yeah. Yeah. 10,
yeah.
6, yeah.
Yeah. So mark it for October 16th, and then mark it for April 16th next year, and reach out to them at 6 months and a year, because that is when people dissipate, and the people who are grieving like us, we don't hear as much later, and we're left alone in our grief. And when other people reach out, we can share our grief with someone, and it helps take the burden. It really does help take the burden off.
That's a great piece of advice, and not something I would have had it in the back of my head. You chose to attend a vigil the night of the shooting, which we've talked about before. You found amazing poise and strength in not only attending, but also addressing the crowd of thousands who were there. You say in the book that God wanted you to speak. Why do you think he would ask that of you? Somebody who's going through that, a grieving mother and a grieving daughter.
So again, maybe God talks to everybody all the time, and we just have to be on a frequency to hear it. So I heard my pastor, Adam Hamilton, in my mom's home say to me, keep listening. Because I told him, I said, I heard this voice on the campus and I don't know what to think of it. And it was frightening to me to think that I was insane now, hearing voices. I'm like, oh my gosh, now I'm insane. And he said, keep listening. And then I heard about the vigil, and my heart was like, you're supposed to be there. And then when I got there, I was like, they're not helping the people. And Reverend Gardemo, who was running the program and had pulled people in and was having people speak, everyone was talking from their heart, and everyone was trying to help the grievers in the audience. But Alan, I had reached a level of pain that only, I think, parents who lose children, I'm guessing, can feel. That's all I can say to that. And they weren't even scratching the surface. And I just turned to my girlfriend, Tara, and I said, I'm supposed to speak. I just felt like I'm supposed to talk. And as I was walking up there, I even didn't know what I was going to say. And I just thought, well, if you want me to talk, then make it happen. And I did that for at least a year. People would ask me to talk, and I would just pray ahead of time and say, okay, God must have put me here, so I'm just going to let him speak through me. And that's really been the path that I'm always on. I prayed before I clicked on this link.
Well, I believe it, because it so comes from the heart with you, and you could, I way before I knew you, and I assume that night is when I heard you speak, and from that day, I do feel it. It really is, from the heart, as painful as that is, it's sort of a beautiful thing that God is doing that and honoring Ree and your dad that way. And I can't even imagine, because I'm not a parent, but you have suffered unbelievable pain and grief due to the murders of your father and son. What does, I think you said it, but what does grief physically feel like to you?
Grief physically feels like at different times, so now when it happens to me, it comes on as irritability and agitation and anxiety and an uncomfortable feeling. And then it starts welling up, and my heart will physically start to hurt. It's not heartburn. It's like someone is squeezing your heart. It's That's a good way of saying it. It's like someone squeezing my heart, and it aches, it hurts. And then it gets so much that the tears come. And then I can push them down sometimes, and I'm better at it now, but I know that it's healthy to be in a good space and allow that when my heart gets squeezed and is filled and the tears start to come, it's healthy to let them flow. It's healthy to be in a safe environment, a comfortable environment where I can let it flow. I get angry faster. I just get really irritable and sometimes a little irrational. And I have to say to myself, breathe, because I feel it taking over. And I write about it in the book, how sometimes I take other people with me along the way. I feel like I'm falling down a hole. And if there are people around me and I get angry or frustrated about it, I know that I'm lashing out at them. And that's why it's not healthy right now, or hasn't been, for me and for my husband, Lynn and Lucas, to be home alone with nothing to do, because we bite at each other, and it's not healthy.
That makes perfect sense. And I can only imagine what this week can trigger. In the book, you mentioned God winks, which are messages from God that are more than just coincidences. Can you share a few?
Yes. Okay. So I had a lot this week so far. I'm excited to share this. So the reason I use the word God winks is because God winks is a real book, and I don't know the name of the author off the top of my head, but I call them messages, and I tell people I get messages. And I'm going to show you my phone, because I was in the airport on April 12th, and I'm going to share this with you because it literally just happened. And I'm going to find something that is not too personal to share. And, okay, so what happened is, okay, there's like more messages here than I expected. Okay, so what happened is I was in the airport flying from Fort Lauderdale to Kansas City, and Rheet appears by form of a yellow butterfly often. And so I have finding the camera, a yellow butterfly on my wrist. Okay, so, well, in an airport, it's not likely there's going to be a yellow butterfly. So I was texting just people, like just communicating, and look what happened to my screen. It turned yellow. Can you see that it's yellow?
Yeah.
I didn't know that your keyboard could be yellow.
I don't either.
I didn't do this on purpose. So he couldn't find a yellow butterfly, so he turned my screen yellow. It's been yellow since April 12th. Okay, yeah, I don't know how it happened. Okay, one more. These just happened. I landed at the Kansas City airport, and I was in a hurry because someone was waiting on me, and I had to take an Uber to get to her, and I didn't want her to wait any longer. So I went to the ladies' room as quickly as possible after my 3-hour flight, and I hung my backpack up on the bathroom stall, and I pottied, and I got up, and I left the stall. Okay? I went all the way outside, and I got derailed by a gentleman. I won't go into all the details, but he needed help with his phone, so I was helping him with his phone. All of a sudden, Alan, I realized I didn't have my backpack on. I had left it on the stall, the side of the stall. Yes, cold sweat.
Yeah,
I'm like,
sure.
My computer, my wallet. I was like, oh my gosh. So I did have my ID on me because I wear a fanny pack. So I had my ID on me. I'm like, okay, well, I have my ID. I go to the restroom, knock on the door, ladies in there. There's no backpack in there. I get to the Lost and Found at Southwest Airlines. And as I'm rounding the corner, this young woman comes around and she says, did you leave your backpack in the bathroom? And I said, yes, I did. And she looks at the Southwest guy and she says, it's her backpack. And Alan, the 2 little girls that are with her, her daughters, have on their t-shirts, Kindness Crew. Kindness Crew on their t-shirts. I was in tears.
I bet.
These are things that happen in my life. Like, I didn't just get my backpack back. I got my backpack from the Kindness Crew.
Right. Right.
Like, I mean, it could have been anybody.
You can't write that.
No.
You can't.
No. And so he appears as a butterfly often. One time we landed in another country, and there weren't just 10 butterflies. there were thousands of yellow butterflies. They were migrating, and we have landed in the middle of a yellow butterfly migration. It was just the most beautiful thing. So he appears in all kinds of ways. And I think that spirits do this, and that as humans, we just need to be on that level. We need to be listening and watching and paying attention, because it is healing for me when that happens.
I bet. How's Lucas doing?
He's doing well. His was one of the texts. I wasn't sure if I could show it on camera. I don't know what he said, but he texted me about something. He is doing well. He's going to finish his freshman year at Arkansas on May 7th. And he's going to come and live with us for the summer. So, you know, we're just delighted that he's going to be with us all summer. So he's got his job lined up, and he's going to take some school work this summer. And we're just so pleased to have him. He's very healthy. Thank you.
That's great. I can continue talking about the book and the stories, but I know we have another guest I want to get to. But before we get to Rajatha, you describe your story as a journey of courageous kindness. You are indeed courageous and indeed kind. What are some ways for others to join you on that journey of courageous kindness?
Well, I think one thing that I mentioned just previously is that if you feel a nudge to do something for someone, then do it. Like if it's opening the door for someone, or buying someone's meal, or writing a card to someone and saying that you are praying for them and that you are so sorry something happened, or writing a letter of encouragement. Let's say you see something and you think that is really awesome. I just want to tell them. I'm feeling, oh, but they don't know me. They're going to think I'm weird. That's what you do. You step into that space that feels uncomfortable, and you do something in a kind action that maybe you wouldn't normally do. And that is being courageous. That's courageous kindness. And so that's what I want people to step into, that realm, stepping out maybe of your comfort zone and saying, I care about you. I am feeling that I need to tell you how great you are. I'm feeling I need to tell you I support you, or I'm praying for you, or I'm going to shovel your snowy driveway today. You know, those are acts of courageous kindness that help all of us as humans survive another day.
That's great, and a perfect introduction to our next guest. Joining Mindy and I now is high school senior Rajatha Velikatori, who is a kindness youth leadership team member with the 7Days Make a Ripple program. She got involved with the Faith Always Wins Foundation after hearing about the opportunity through the Kansas City Interfaith Youth Alliance. She jumped at the opportunity to get involved and is proud of the work they're doing on the Others Day event that they are producing this year, coming up next week. Please welcome Rajatha Velikatori. Hi, Rajatha.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Raj.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
You're coming to us from high school, aren't you?
Yeah, so there's a bell's gonna go off in about a minute, so just be prepared.
Okay, thank you for letting us know. So you told me that you got involved through the Kansas City Interfaith Youth Alliance. Can you talk about your reasons for joining that alliance? What brought you to the Interfaith Youth Alliance?
Yeah, so I go to a Catholic school, so we're really into talking about faith and having important conversations about interfaith dialogue. And so I'm part of the Interfaith Club at my school. And so we plan a prayer service every year surrounding like the students at our school who come from different worldviews. And so I heard about it from the teacher who leads that. And so I joined the Interfaith Youth Alliance, and the woman who leads it did some work with Mindy and the people at Faith Always Wins for a while. And so there's the bell. And so right after that, as soon as they launched the official Kindness Youth Leadership Team program, I just knew that was something that I needed to be involved in.
Interesting. So you say you go to a Catholic school, but you're not Catholic, right? Are there a lot of, so this is new to me. Are there a lot of other faiths that go to a Catholic school?
Yeah, you'd be surprised actually. So at my school, we have a good amount of Jewish students and Muslim students, and I think I'm one of 2 Hindu students, and there are some Buddhists, some atheists, some agnostics, some people who are just spiritual and not religious.
That's incredible. Mindy, do you know? I mean, I just don't know. Is that something that Catholic schools always had? Or is that something
It was new to me when I got into the world of interfaith, and I was introduced to different Catholic schools in the Kansas City area, because I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma, and we didn't have a Catholic school to go to. We had the public school to go to. So it was new to me, but Raj could maybe speak to if that's just common nationally, or if that's something that maybe is well known in the Midwest. I'm not sure, but it was new to me as well.
Definitely new to me. Do you know, Raj?
Yeah, I think you'll see that we just have more ability to have that dialogue about faith. So I think that maybe just that dialogue is there in public schools. It's just not that prevalent.
But do you know if most Catholic schools have interfaith students, or it's not uncommon today?
I think it's not uncommon today. I think a lot of places want to have that dialogue with their students.
And I would also say, Alan, as a parent, if you're living in an area of a community that the public schools might not meet your standards, and you want your child to go to a private school, a private school where you pay differently and you get different aspects, you're gonna just send your student to that school, and whether they're that faith or not. But I agree with you. I didn't understand that someone who's Jewish could go to a Catholic school, but I think that parents choose that for the openness of diversity, the openness of conversation, the openness of dialogue. And it might be because the parents have the means to do so, and specifically have the desire for their child to be in that environment.
Well, yeah, I think it's really a great way it's exactly what you talk about. It's interfaith's right there growing up. So there is, hopefully there's no hate, being born, because you're all together, all of these faiths together. So I know how important faith is to Mindy. Is faith an important part of your life as well?
Yeah, it's a really important part of my life, because I think that it's just an awesome way to connect with God and have your own unique perspective on it, because everybody's way of worship or faith or just belief is different, right? So for me, it's all about just, I always imagine a kind God and someone who is, always there when you need someone to talk to, and someone who's just omnipresent and genderless, and just something that's beyond our understanding.
And you said genderless, didn't you?
Yes.
Is that the word you said?
She did. Yeah. I know. I caught that as well. So you mentioned that you heard about Faith Always Wins through the Alliance. What was it that spoke to you about Faith Always Wins that you wanted to participate?
So I had actually gone to their event the year before on the white supremacist talks on Others Day. So they have a speaker every year on Others Day, and we try to find someone who has a really unique perspective on something that can really bring to light a point of view. And so that year, I'm sure Mindy can talk more on that, I went to that event, and I was really just surprised. And I had heard about 7 Days for a while, because the kindness walks were always happening, where I live. And so I knew that as soon as I heard about it, it was something that I wanted to just be around people that had those same ideas about preaching kindness.
That's great. Mindy, we spoke earlier that, Faith Always Wins and 7 Days were born out of losing your dad and Terry. Can you just talk about the 7-day Make a Ripple program? And because we were talking about Others Day, which is what Raj is working on, which, I'll ask her about what they have planned this year, but I'd love to hear about the whole 7 days.
Right. Yeah. So 7 Days Make a Ripple Change the World is the official title. And the branding is really good. And the logo is 7 days. And so a lot of people just are like, oh, it's 7 days. It's 7 days. And our URL is Give 7 Days. So now people call it Give 7 Days. So it's a program that has happened. This is our 7th year. We're actually in the middle of it. So we're talking on April 16th, and we've already had 2 programs. So our themes are love, discover, others, connect, you, go, onwards. We have 7 themes for 7 different programs. And Love Day happened on April 13th. And it was a program. And because of COVID and the pandemic, we did all pre-recording. And we really showcased our button art winners, and we had kindness competition winners. And then we also gave an award to former Chiefs quarterback Trent Green, who is now, an analyst for football. And he got our first ever Ripple of Kindness award. So that's something we're going to do annually now. So that was our Love Day, and it's on our YouTube channel. So your listeners can go to our YouTube channel at Give 7 Days, and they can see our programs that have already played. And last night, Raj and I were both on watching the program for Discover Day, and it was all focused on Hinduism. And
is that the address?
It is. That is the address. Right. Give 7 Days. Oh, I'm sorry. No, give7days.org.
.org. Okay.
Thank you, Raj. I know she caught that before I did. Give7days.org. And so Love and Discover have happened. Tomorrow is our You Day. Tomorrow on Saturday, we're having You Day because it is important to take care of you. And so there'll be a program tomorrow that's available to people who've registered at give7days.org. And then we'll have our Go Day, which is an interfaith panel, and that's a live program on April 19th. It's very meaningful. A lot has happened in our history on April 19th, and the panelists are going to talk about that. They're from the Abrahamic faiths, which are Christian, Jewish, and Islam. And then we have a Buddhist joining us for that conversation.
And that April 19th is which day?
April 19th is Go Day.
Go Day.
Yes. And then Raj, I'm going to let Raj talk about Others Day, which is April 22nd.
Yeah, so I'm just going to show off my shirt. I'm wearing my Others Day shirt.
Oh, nice.
So I'm part of
and where did the term others come from, and what for you, Mindy, is that definition?
Yes, so others particularly came from an initial conversation we had in year one in 2015. We decided it was going to be 7 days of activities, and we wanted a theme for every day. You'll notice that every word that we picked has an O in it. So the O is the ripple, okay? So that was kind of marketing branding, like what words are really meaningful to humans that will cause people to have some kind of action. The word others in particular was chosen because some people are treated as the other. Okay, so as a Jewish gay man, you're treated as the other for different reasons.
many times, yes.
Right, and so what we want to do is we actually want to say, look, don't treat someone as the other. Go find that person and have a conversation with them. Everyone has a story, and all of us are valuable in some way. So let's find where that value is. And so that was how the word others was used, and why we use the word others.
That's great. Raj, take it away. Tell me what you're got planned.
Yeah, so this year we have an event planned. It's going to be virtual like all the other 7 days events. And basically we have an amazing keynote speaker that Mindy has a personal relationship with. They met at a conference, I believe, in Berlin.
Toronto, Canada.
Toronto, okay.
Berlin, wow. No, Toronto.
I heard you say Berlin one time. So basically, he's going to be a keynote speaker, and his is Dr. Iseldine Abilash, and he lost 3 of his daughters and his niece in Israeli tank fire. And so he's always been, his whole life, even before this, he's been working for peace in that region between Israel and Palestine. And so a lot of his work has just been about peace, but also as a doctor, because he brings a unique perspective, and because he was the first Palestinian doctor to work in an Israeli hospital. And so it was all about just bringing people together and really moving on from that tragedy. And he wrote a book right after this happened, when he moved to Canada, with just all the emotions and a story of his life, and how everything came together. And so he's going to be our keynote speaker. And then
3 daughters he lost?
3 daughters and his niece. And he also had just lost his wife to cancer right a couple months before.
Yes, the book that Dr. Iseldine Abilash has written is called I Shall Not Hate. And it's a Gaza doctor's journey, to finding peace. And Raj explains it very eloquently, and she's had the opportunity to meet him and help with the interview questions. And she's done a lot of the significant planning with her adult mentor, who is Pam Pop, But Raj and Lila's on your team too. So there are two Kindness Youth Leadership Team students assigned to every adult, and then they are assigned an activity, and their event is Others Day. So Dr. Izzaldine writes about his life as a refugee living in Gaza and being Palestinian, and had a monumental life in and of itself before his wife passed away of cancer, and then Israeli fire hit his home in 2009 and murdered 3 of his daughters and 1 niece.
Wow. Yeah, I mean,
it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. And so we brought him in, Alan, because we bring people in similar to my story. We bring people in to say, okay, how did they survive this? And so look at our typically normal day and our typically normal life. And maybe, you're involved in some road rage with somebody, or maybe you got fired from your job, and it is disruptive and upsetting. But look at what other people have had happen to them and how they are surviving. And not only surviving, he's thriving in what he's doing for young women. He's helping to educate young women with his foundation called Daughters for Life. So his foundation, we wanted to introduce his foundation to our community, and it's called Daughters for Life, and they educate young women, so that, because he says he's such a champion for women and educated women. So he's all about making sure that young women in the Middle East get educated.
Well, he was the only man in his family. I mean, 3 daughters, his niece, his wife.
So he does have some, he has some sons. Yes.
Oh, he has sons too.
He
wow,
does.
Okay.
Yes. Luckily the entire family wasn't there at the same time.
Wow. Wow. That sounds like it's going to be a powerful conversation.
Yes. Raj, you want to give a little bit more detail about who else will be there?
Yeah. So after we have that very powerful keynote speech, we're going to have like a Q&A with a panel. So Mindy's pastor, Pastor Adam Hamilton of the Church of Resurrection, is going to be one of our panelists. And he's from the Methodist denomination. And then Rabbi Art Nematov from Congregation B'nai Yehuda is going to be speaking as well. And then Mindy, Dr. Abby Leish, and then a local television news anchor, Haley Harrison. And so they're all going to be in conversation discussing these questions that we have about the region, about healthcare, about youth, about moving past hate, and just really giving everybody some things to think about.
Do you come up with those questions with your, I don't know what you called it, Mindy, her mentor?
Her mentor team. And her team.
Yeah, her mentor and her team. Oh, that's amazing. What, Mindy, where did the Kindness Youth Leadership idea come from?
Originally, we had a youth advisory board for Faith Always Wins, because my son was taken from me and I wasn't finished parenting. I needed more kids to talk to and mold and help. I just love students, and Reet was a high school student, and I just wanted to be around high school students. So we had a youth advisory board. But a few years in, the Faith Always Wins Foundation hired Jill Anderson, and Jill Anderson is an educator by her education. So she taught for years and years, and she was volunteering, and Faith Always Wins hired her, and she took this under her wing, and she also was able to get us a grant from the Hall Family Foundation. So the Hall Family Foundation out of Kansas City gave us a $10,000 grant for the Kindness Youth Leadership Team. And Jill named it. I'm sure I agreed to it at the time. She said, let's call it this. I said, okay. And then she does some great classes and mentoring. And Raj, why don't you speak to that? What else besides, you put together 7 days and your activity, but what else does the Kindness Youth Leadership Team do during the year that you're together?
Yeah, so when we had a small in-person portion last year, we got together and we would have pizza and dessert and talk about, what we were working on in our high schools and what our goals were for the events. And sometimes we had like a show and tell over Zoom just recently about like something that spoke to us, to a specific question that she had asked last week. We have all kinds of activities and breakout rooms with people on the Kindness Youth Leadership Team. It's really about talking to other teenagers and having those conversations and, just being friends with everybody.
That's great.
So they,
we were go ahead. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Alan. They
No,
are
no, go.
they are tasked with one of their responsibilities once they're on the team is to take the 7 days program into their schools. And so part of that is we help talk to them about how to do that, how to talk to adults, how to have a conversation with adults, how to do planning. And then we also did some fun things. I know we did the Casey Pet Project, and Jill had you all do the pumpkin patch. So Jill comes up with these things. I'm like, do you think they're going to want to go to the pumpkin patch? But they did. Did you go to the pumpkin patch? Were you available, Raj, for that?
I couldn't go because my mom wanted me to stay at home because it was in August. But yeah.
Yeah, it was still heightened of the pandemic, but there were a group of kids that went to the pumpkin patch, and it's about community. It's about being with community, and the kids their students are from different schools. We have one young lady who's homeschooled. They're different ages. They're freshman to senior, and then as you can tell, they're different faiths. And
which is perfect.
Yeah.
But we're talking about Others Day, and we were talking about being seen as other. Raj, have there been times at your age, do you feel seen as other?
Definitely. I think that just physically, obviously, I have a different color skin than most people, and my face is different than most everybody at my school. But I think that being a part of Others Day, being a part of 7 days has helped me realize that that's the beauty of it, is that we all have things, whether they be physical that you can see or internal that we feel or think or are. And so I think that just being able to come to terms with the fact that that is what makes us unique and beautiful, and that's what we should learn to embrace. So yes, we all, have assumptions that we make about people just based on what we see about them. And that's what really Others Day is about. That's what 7 days is about, is bringing those people together and having those conversations. And so things that I felt before have helped me heal from by being a part of 7 days.
That's great, because I was asking about Others Day and being seen as others, but I had a question about what have you learned through doing all of this? So you put all of that together. Do you're a senior in high school? Do you know what you want to do as the future comes?
Yeah, so I would love to go into nonprofit work at some time, whether that be, volunteering or as a career, but I definitely want to become a doctor. And also, this is kind of a weird combo I always get told, but I would love to do a political science major or international affairs. So there's lots of things. So I have the opportunity to be undecided. So I'm going to go with that for a little while.
Good. You've definitely have time to figure it out. Mindy, Pam wrote, I grew up near Overland Park and was horrified to hear about those shootings and inspired by how God is working through you to make a difference. And I will buy your book and listen to your podcasts.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you.
And Kate, I think it must be a friend or family note, said, thank you for having Mindy on the show. Wreath was an awesome kid, and Mindy is an incredible woman, which I completely agree. Knowing that you created Faith Always Wins and 7 Days Make a Ripple to honor your dad, Wreath, and Terry, what are you most proud of with what you've done since you started the organizations?
So regarding the organizations, I am most proud that they just are still existing, that we've kept them together, because it's very grassroots. Sometimes Jill and I are like, it's little old us, it's just grassroots. But we do have a broad volunteer base, and that includes the Kindness Youth Leadership Team. And that's about 25 to 30 students. And that's enormous. So I would say that my greatest attribute to this, the greatest attribute, is all of the students that we're reaching, because we're reaching young people like Raj who are going to make a ripple and change the world.
100%. I mean, I believe kids really, are Whitney said it in her song, children are the future. I mean, and it's a statement always, and I actually felt it very strongly after the Parkland shooting, listening to those incredibly smart young people inspired me. I mean, I couldn't imagine speaking like they were speaking as articulately at their age and expressing what they felt.
Absolutely. And I've started saying this year, and Raj has heard me say this, that we say, and I think I may have said this to you, Alan, we say, well, the next generation will do this, or the next generation will change this, or they'll make the change. Well, we might say it, but we don't let them do it. And at Faith Always Wins in 7 days, we are letting them do it. We are putting them in a position. She had a conversation with Dr. Aguilesh. She could go in and have a conversation with Rabbi Art Nimitoff. She could go have a conversation with the senior pastor at the largest Methodist church in the United States. And so we're putting all of our students in a position where we give them that ability to talk and make decisions and ask questions and observe, not just observe and not be told what to do. We're handing them those reins and saying, let's go together. Let's do this together.
Do you get some, I hope you do, some of Wreath's friends participating?
I do. So Wreath's friends are starting to graduate college right now. And so he's going to be turning 22 on May 21, and they're starting to graduate. Some of his friends have already graduated college, and then some of them are going to graduate a semester late, I've heard. But yes, I'm like, where are you right now? Yes, they do. Some of them really early on were on the youth advisory board, and then they helped cultivate what the Kindness Youth Leadership Team would become. And I have to give kudos to Jake Goldman. So Jake Goldman is a young Jewish man now, and he came to me when he was a junior in high school, only months after the murders, and he said, I want to do something. And he was upset by bullying that was going on in his high school. And he was the first person who helped me start the youth advisory board. And I sent him a picture of the Kindness Youth Leadership Team every year. And I said, look what you started. Look where they are now. And so it started with the youth, and they're definitely making a ripple for us.
That's incredible. That really is. I mean, what you're doing really is making a difference. And I can't thank you both for, being here today. Mindy, please, everybody pick up this book. Healing a Shattered Soul is on sale now. It comes out May 3rd. You have the box of tissues next to you. It's powerful, but I think it's so important. You never know. I mean, how you're able to share your grief. Everybody will have an experience of grief in their life, no matter it might not be, as tragic as this moment was, but we all, losing my parent, there's all these things that affect us in deep ways. And I think people can learn a lot on how you and your family, what was really powerful was, how you talked in chapters about mom's grief, Tony's grief, and your other brother's named after
Will.
your dad, right? Will.
Mm-hmm, Will.
Yeah. I mean, you really let us into your family and what everybody was going through during that period. And
thank you. I hope that is healing for people. And I have told people to have a box of Kleenex too.
Yeah,
next to them. It's raw. It's definitely raw emotion.
Yeah.
But I want people to, maybe somebody needs to grieve and they're not. And so pick up my book and you'll start crying.
Well, that's the thing. I think you even said it earlier for yourself about crying. There are a lot of people who won't let themselves feel, and you need to grieve. You need to be able to feel.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You really do. And the other thing I love is you really went back to everybody to make sure you got it right.
Yes, I did.
And that's important. I mean, you wanted it to be authentic and telling the real story.
Thank you.
So great to see you. Raj, I wish you the best. You're gonna change the world. What kind of doctor?
Neonatologist.
Oh, wow.
I know. She's smarty pants, and she's
Oh, I can tell that. I can tell
Yes.
she's a smarty pants.
Yes.
Mindy, best of luck with the book. So good to see you. And
Thank you.
We'll talk.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you so much for taking time. That's okay.
She disconnected.
That's okay, Raj. Thanks so much for taking time to being with us.
All right, Mindy, I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Bye. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great weekend. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so below. And I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody.